Hello. My name is Luna. I used to believe that family was everything. That, no matter what happened in life, the people closest to you would protect you, love you, never betray you. I clung to that belief for over 60 years until the day I buried my only daughter and watched her husband lie with a smile on his face. Haley Monroe was everything to me. My miracle baby. Born late in life when I thought motherhood had passed me by, she grew up to become one of the most recognizable influencers in California. Beloved for her sustainable living brand and her authentic spirit. Millions of followers. Dozens of brand deals. Magazine features yet to me. She was still the little girl who used to rescue squirrels and paint rainbows on our garage door. And then, just like that, she was gone. The police said it was an accident. A tragic car crash on a winding back road in Sonoma County. Her brakes failed on a sharp turn and she died instantly. At least, that's what they told me. But even in my grief, something didn't feel right. The funeral was held at a historic church in Napa Valley. The same one where we used to attend Christmas Eve services together. It was beautiful. Filled with white lilies and vintage photographs of Haley's life. Her husband Derek had spared no expense. The media lined up outside, hungry for footage of the grieving family of California's eco-darling. Inside, mourners wept as a string quartet played softly. And then there was Derek. He stood near the pulpit, adjusting his tie in the mirror as if preparing for a press conference. Not his wife's funeral. His hands were calm. Smooth. Too smooth. There were no tremors. No tears. Just a polished expression of loss perfectly curated. Like everything else in his life. You need to eat something. Luna. He told me gently as we stood alone for a moment in the side hall. I barely heard him. My eyes couldn't leave the closed casket. Only 20 feet away. Surrounded by bouquets sent from followers. Influencers. PR agencies. My daughter was inside that box. And this man, her husband, was concerned about my appetite. I'll manage, I whispered, clutching the silver locket around my neck. Inside it was a picture of Haley at age 7. Missing her 2 front teeth and holding up a goldfish she'd won at the county fair. That's when I saw it. A flicker in Derek's eyes. Not concern. Not grief. Something else. Something colder. The guests began to arrive. Cameras clicked outside. I slipped away down the hallway. Needing a breath of air? A moment of silence. That's when I heard it. Derek's voice. Low and sharp? Coming from behind a half-closed door. We stick to the plan, he said. A deeper voice replied. Too many people around. We'll go over the rest later. I froze. My heart thudded in my chest. The door creaked open. Derek stepped out with a man I didn't recognize. Broad shoulders. Dark sunglasses. Not dressed for a funeral. They both stopped when they saw me. Luna, Derek said, forcing a surprised smile. How long have you been standing there? Just needed some space. I answered, trying to sound casual while my skin crawled. The other man disappeared down the hall without a word. Derek placed a hand on my back, guiding me toward the main room. Just the funeral director, he whispered smoothly, talking over details. But it was a lie. I knew it the way a mother knows when her child is lying about breaking a vase. Something was wrong. The rest of the service passed in a blur. Derek's eulogy had the room in tears. Strangers sobbed at his words. His trembling voice. His poetic tribute to his beloved Haley. But I sat motionless, staring forward. My hands locked together in my lap, because I knew the woman he spoke of. And she was not the version he described. Later that afternoon, Back at the house, I found Haley's Apple Watch in a sealed evidence bag. The police had returned her belongings earlier. Something in me snapped. Instead of handing it over to Derek like I knew I was expected to, I slipped it into my purse on the ride back to Sacramento. Just before nightfall, I turned to Derek as he drove. "Who was that man you were speaking with earlier?" I asked. The car slowed. Derek's jaw tightened. "You really don't know when to stop, do you?" he said flatly. And in that moment, I saw it. The truth. The man I once called son had been wearing a mask this entire time, and I had just begun to peel it off. The car turned off the main road without warning. Streetlights gave way to shadows, then disappeared altogether. I looked out the window and realized I didn't recognize this stretch of road. No signs. No homes. Just open California wilderness. Rows of blackened trees stretched into the night. "Where are we going?" I asked. My voice keyed. Uncertain. Derek didn't answer. His grip tightened on the wheel. His face unreadable. "You talk too much, Luna," he said finally. His tone unnervingly calm. Just like Haley. Always asking questions. Always poking where you didn't belong. I blinked. My blood turned to ice. What happened to Haley? It wasn't an accident. Was it? The words came out before I could stop them. Derek's foot slammed the brake. The car skidded violently to the right. Tires crunching over loose gravel. My seatbelt caught me as I lurched forward. Before I could recover, he reached across me, yanked the door open, and shoved me out. I hit the dirt hard, scraping my palms and knees. The shock stunned me more than the pain. "You're right," he said, standing over me as the engine idled behind him. The brakes didn't fail on their own. Haley was starting to become a liability. Emotional, distrustful, reckless. He crouched down, reaching into my purse, taking my phone, my wallet, even my prescription medication. He found the Apple Watch too. His expression darkened. "Snooping already. Huh. Just like your daughter." He dropped the watch on the ground and stomped it under his heel until the glass shattered. "Why," I gasped. "She loved you. Love doesn't fund offshore accounts." "Luna." He pulled the cardigan from my shoulders. "Nights get cold out here." That was when the full horror set in. "You're leaving me here?" I asked. My voice hoarse. "Consider it retirement," he said, stepping back toward the car. "Don't worry. I've already built the perfect story grieving mother. Lost in sorrow. Goes on a spiritual retreat into the hills and never returns. People disappear all the time. You'll just be another name in a dusty file. Someone will find me," I said. Even as the darkness mocked me, he laughed, leaning on the open window as he prepared to drive away. "We're 60 miles from the nearest highway. Luna. No water. No shelter. It drops below freezing out here at night. I'd give you 12 hours. Maybe." He drove off without another word. The taillights vanished into blackness, leaving me alone with nothing but wind, silence, and the cold grip of fear. I tried to stand, but my hip throbbed and my palms stung. I stumbled and dropped again to my knees. Was this how it ended? Not with illness. Not with old age. But here, abandoned in the desert, like a broken piece of furniture. Then I felt it pressed against my chest. The locket? Inside. Haley's tiny smile stared back at me. I ran my thumb over the curve of her cheek. "I'm not letting him win," I whispered. "Not tonight." Somewhere in the distance, I saw the faintest flicker of light. Maybe it was a town? Maybe it was just a reflection on the horizon. But I had to try. I wrapped my arms around myself, tore a strip from the lining of my dress, and wrapped it around my blistering feet, where my shoes had already begun to fall apart. And I walked. The desert swallowed me, inch by inch. As the temperature plummeted, my breath came out in clouds. I talked to myself to stay awake, whispered the names of trees and flowers I used to teach my second graders, sang lullabies I once sang to Haley, anything to stay conscious. Hours passed. Sometime before dawn, rain began to fall. First a mist, then a downpour. I found a narrow rock ledge and crawled under it, trembling violently. My body wanted to quit, but my mind refused. Every ache, every gust of wind, every crack of thunder was a promise. I will not die here. I don't remember falling asleep, only waking up at sunrise, soaked to the bone, surrounded by silence. The rain had passed. Pools of water had formed in the cracks between rocks. I drank carefully, recalling what my husband had once taught me: drink too fast after dehydration and you'll go into shock. David. He would have been proud. He always said the first rule of survival was adaptability. The second, keep moving. I staggered forward, following the sun, each step a war with gravity and pain. The light on the horizon became more defined, a gas station, or maybe a mirage. But I kept walking, because if I stopped, Derek would win, and if I didn't stop, I had a chance to finish what Haley started. By the time I saw the old gas station, I couldn't tell if I was awake or dreaming. My legs were numb, my lips cracked, and every breath felt like fire. But the building was real. Faded green paint, a single rusted gas pump, a hand-painted sign that read Carter's Cold Soda, tire fix. God willing. I stumbled the last few feet and collapsed against the pump. A screen door creaked open. An older man, maybe in his 70s, stepped out, eyes squinting beneath a worn army cap. Jesus Christ, he muttered, rushing toward me. Lady, what the hell happened to you? I don't remember what I said. I think I mumbled something about a family dispute. Or maybe I just said help? All I know is he got me inside, sat me on a stool near an ancient space heater, handed me a wool blanket and a bottle of water. His name was Bill Carter, a Vietnam vet who'd escaped the noise of the world 20 years ago and never looked back. He lived alone, ran the gas station for travelers who took the wrong turn or needed to escape something themselves. You're lucky, he said. Not many people find this place, unless they're meant to. He offered food, beef jerky, and saltines and listened without interrupting as I told him pieces of the truth. Enough to earn his concern. Not enough to put him in danger. He didn't flinch when I said my daughter was murdered. Didn't look surprised when I said her husband had left me to die. Wouldn't be the first time someone got dumped in the desert, he said. Though usually it's a stolen car. Not a woman in pearls. He let me sleep in the back room, a converted storage closet with a cot and a stack of old National Geographics. That night, I lay awake listening to the storm roll in again, wondering if Derek even paused to consider I might survive. He probably didn't. That was his mistake. In the morning, Bill brought me coffee in a chipped USMC mug and asked me what I planned to do next. I don't know, I admitted. I can't go home. Derek will try again. Then don't go home, he said simply. Go forward. His words struck something deep. I had no phone, no money, no ID. But I still had something Derek didn't expect: my mind, my memory, my will. Over the next 2 weeks, I stayed with Bill, helping with the station, learning the rhythm of the place, He paid me in cash and let me dig through the old clothes he kept for stranded travelers. I found jeans, a flannel shirt, a faded giant's cap. We dyed my hair dark with a box from the back shelf. I cut it myself with his kitchen scissors. The woman in the mirror wasn't Martha Luna Prescott anymore. She was Mary Cardenas now. A little slower in her step, a little hunched from grief. The kind of woman you might overlook? Perfect. Bill helped me buy a bus ticket to Sacramento under the new name. When the day came, he handed me a small compass. Brought me home from Nam, he said gruffly. Might help you find your way. 2. I cried as I hugged him. Don't thank me, he said. Just finish the damn story. Back in Sacramento, Derek's media campaign was in full swing. My face was plastered on every digital billboard. Missing Luna Prescott. Television anchors discussed the tragedy of a grieving widow who'd vanished after her daughter's fatal crash. Derek appeared in every interview. Eyes glassy, voice trembling, offering a reward for information. He was building his alibi. I couldn't go back to my home. Not yet. So I went to Diane's. Diane Simmons had been my closest friend for 30 years. A retired librarian who lived 2 doors down. When she answered the door, she didn't recognize me at first, but when I removed my glasses and whispered her name, she gasped and pulled me inside. Oh my God! Luna! You're alive! With the curtains drawn and the television volume up to mask our voices, I told her everything. Derek's lies. The desert. The USB I never got to find. The plan to finish what Haley started. I knew something was wrong with that man. Diane said, tears in her eyes. The way he'd smile at the cameras. Then glare when he thought no one was watching. Like he was always rehearsing. I need access to Haley's accounts. I said, she mentioned you were listed as an emergency contact once. Diane sat down at her laptop. Hands trembling, but determined. Let's find him, she said. And in that moment, for the first time since I'd crawled out of the desert, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Hope. Diane worked quickly. Her fingers flew across the keyboard like she was defusing a bomb. Not logging into a dead woman's accounts. Haley made me her emergency backup 6 months ago. She explained. Said it was just in case something ever happened. I didn't think she meant this. Within minutes, we had access to her cloud storage, email history, and financial dashboard. And what we found made my blood run cold. Weeks before her death, Haley had flagged several large money transfers. Hundreds of thousands of dollars moved from their joint accounts into offshore holdings. She'd sent multiple messages to Derek, asking for explanations. His replies were vague. Business expansion. Long-term investments. Not your concern. But Haley hadn't stopped digging. In one email to her financial advisor, she wrote, these transfers don't match the timeline Derek gave me. I'm seeing deposits in places he claims we've never done business. I'm starting to think something's seriously wrong. And then, just 3 days before the accident, she sent a short message to her lawyer. Ava Bryant need to update my will ASAP. Found something that changes everything. Don't tell Derek. I'll explain in person. Diane leaned back in her chair, shaking her head. She knew. She whispered. She knew what he was doing. I nodded slowly. And she died before she could change that will. We had to find Ava. If Haley left something with her evidence, documents, anything, it could be the key to taking Derek down. You can't just walk into her office. Diane warned. Your face is on every street corner. Then I'll call her, I said. But not from your phone. That night, We used an encrypted messaging app from Diane's tablet to contact Ava's private number. I kept the message simple. This is Luna Prescott. I'm alive. I need to speak with you privately about Haley. Urgent. The response came within 10 minutes. If this is real, meet me at the level 3 parking deck under Riverwalk Plaza. 9 a.m. tomorrow. Come alone. The next morning, wrapped in a scarf and oversized coat, I stepped into a rideshare car under the name Mary Cardenas and rode to the Riverwalk. I carried nothing but a burner phone, and the compass Bill had given me. A silver Lexus waited in space 42. I hesitated, then tapped the window. It rolled down slowly. Ava Bryant looked exactly like Haley had described her sharp eyes. Sharp suit. Not easily impressed. Get in, she said. We're not talking here. We drove to a park on the edge of town. Deserted in the early morning. Ava asked me 5 questions only Haley's mother would know the answer to. When I passed each one, her demeanor shifted from cautious to focused. I knew something was wrong when Haley missed our meeting. She said. She was scared. I told her to come to my office in person, said we'd handle the paperwork privately. But she never showed. Did she leave anything with you? Ava reached into her bag and handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a USB drive and a short note. Mom, if something happens to me, it wasn't an accident. Derek has been lying for years. This drive contains financial records, screenshots, recordings, everything I could gather. Be careful. He's not who he pretends to be. I love you, Haley. I stared at the note. My fingers trembling. There are recordings, I asked. Ava nodded. Haley had installed hidden cameras in their home. The files auto-uploaded to a private cloud account. The drive holds the login info. Back at Diane's. I plugged the drive into her laptop. A folder named For Mom appeared. Inside were dozens of videos. We clicked on one dated 4 days before Haley died. It showed Derek pacing in his home office. On the phone, it has to look natural, he said. That road outside Glenridge. Tight curve. No guardrails. It'll look like driver error. A second voice answered one I didn't recognize. You want this done. It's gonna cost you. You'll get your money, Derek said. Just handle it. I covered my mouth. Shaking. That's the man I saw at the funeral. I whispered. That's him. Vincent Cruz. Ava said, reading from a file she'd pulled up. Mechanic with a record. Insurance fraud. Suspected in a staged collision ring. And now accomplice to murder. We need to go to the police. Ava said. No. I said. They won't believe me. Not yet. Not when Derek's already painted me as a fragile, grieving, possibly unstable old woman. Then what's the plan? We make him confess. I said. On tape. In public. With witnesses? That's crazy. Ava whispered. Maybe. But it's the only way to make sure he never hurts anyone else again. Because Haley saw him for who he really was. And now? So did I. The plan had to be fast. Clean. And undeniable. We couldn't afford even one misstep. I wasn't just trying to expose Derek. I was going up against the narrative he had already poisoned. The grieving husband. The generous benefactor. The man who'd lost everything. But now I had the one thing he feared most, truth. And I was going to hand it to him like a mirror. Ava helped me arrange a private booking at a local grief support forum one Derek often donated to and occasionally attended. It was held every other Thursday in a rented hall behind a Unitarian church on the west side of town. The moderator, a former therapist named Joel, agreed to let me speak under a different name. Ava would come too, posing as my legal representative. Diane would be in the back, holding a camera. Ava's tech assistant patched in a wireless mic beneath my sweater. Derek never missed those meetings. He loved the stage. That night, as I walked into the softly lit hall, I felt like I was stepping into fire. My palms were damp, my throat dry. But I wasn't afraid. I wasn't Luna the victim anymore. Joel introduced me simply, "This is Mary. She lost someone recently and wants to share." I stood. "My daughter died 3 months ago." I began. "They said it was an accident. That she was tired. Distracted. Maybe speeding." My voice trembled, but I held the room. But I knew her heart. I knew how careful she was with life, especially when she became a mother. From the corner of my eye, I saw Derek freeze. I continued. Her husband spoke at the funeral, told everyone how broken he was, how deeply he missed her. But he never shed a tear when no one was looking. And weeks before she died, she sent messages, said she was scared, said he was hiding something. The air in the room tightened like a noose. Derek shifted in his seat. "She left a will," I said. "Or tried to, but she never got the chance to sign it." Now Derek stood up. "Excuse me. This is inappropriate." I turned. "Sit down." "Derek." He blinked. "What did you just call me?" I took a step forward. "I know what you did. I know about the wire transfers, the offshore accounts. I know about the call you made to Vincent Cruz 4 days before the crash. I've heard your voice." He laughed nervously. "This is insane. You're harassing me." But his hands were shaking. Ava stood. "We have evidence. Financial. Audio. Video." Joel turned to her. "Is this true?" She nodded. "And as of this morning, it's been submitted to the district attorney." Silence. Derek looked like a man trying to swim in wet concrete. "You killed her," I said, my voice calm. "For money? For control. And now, you're going to answer for it." Security escorted him out quietly. He didn't speak again. 2 weeks later, he was indicted for conspiracy to commit murder and insurance fraud. Vincent Cruz was arrested at a cabin in Arkansas. The story ran everywhere: morning shows, podcasts, crime blogs. But I stayed quiet. I wasn't in it for headlines. Haley's name was cleared. The accident officially reclassified. Her new will was finally validated in probate. Her son would be raised by Diane, surrounded by love, not manipulation. And me, I bought a small cabin in the Adirondacks. I kept Haley's compass on the windowsill. Some mornings I swear it moves. Just slightly. As if pointing towards something only she can see. People ask me how I survived all of it. And I say this grief doesn't always destroy you. Sometimes it sharpens you. Sometimes it reveals what you were always capable of. And sometimes it saves someone else. Spring came late to the Adirondacks that year. The snow melted in April, slowly revealing the pine needles and broken twigs that had been buried for months. I watched it all from my cabin porch, wrapped in Haley's old flannel jacket, sipping coffee and listening to the wind sweep through the trees. Life was quieter now. Not easy, but quiet. After the trial, things didn't just go back to normal because there was no normal to return to. I wasn't the same woman who had buried her daughter under a gray sky. I wasn't the same woman who had wandered through a desert of grief, searching for something to hold on to. I had been burned down, but something new had grown in the ashes. Haley's son, my grandson, came to visit every few weeks. Diane would bring him up for the weekend. We'd walk the trails behind the cabin, pick wild blueberries, watch deer graze along the edge of the woods. He asked about his mom one night. As we were watching the stars, Was she brave? He said. I looked at him, his mother's eyes. Her quiet way of asking big questions. She was the bravest person I ever knew. I said, but not because she wasn't scared. She was brave because she kept going. Even when it was hard. He didn't say anything. Just leaned his head on my shoulder. I thought a lot about the idea of justice. People told me we'd won. That Derek going to prison was justice. That setting the record straight about Haley was justice. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like surviving. True justice, I realized, isn't about revenge. It's about truth. About peace. About letting the light back in where darkness had lived too long. That summer, I was invited to speak at a women's shelter in Albany. The director had heard about my story and wanted me to talk about resilience, grief, and healing. I was nervous at first. But when I stood in front of that room full of women, some with scars they couldn't hide, others with ones you'd never see, I understood why I had to be there. I told them the truth. Not just the parts that looked good in headlines. I told them about the days I couldn't get out of bed. About screaming into the void. About nearly giving up. About walking into a courthouse with shaking hands. But then I told them what came after. I told them about the moment I stopped blaming myself. The moment I realized Haley's voice hadn't died. That it had just changed. I told them that healing doesn't come all at once. It comes in pieces. In tiny moments of strength you don't even notice at first. And then I said something I hadn't planned. You don't need to be unbreakable. You just need to be unwilling to stay broken. When I finished, the room was quiet. A few women wiped their eyes. One came up to me afterward and whispered, "Thank you for not lying to us." That night, I sat in my car and cried. Not out of pain, but release. Maybe this was the next chapter. Maybe my story could help someone else find their way through the dark. Not because I had all the answers, but because I had been there, and I had come back. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.